Hello, I'm Shelley Rothus, and I'm a different kind of victim. Today, we're going to be going over domestic violence culture and examples of the responses I had received after the recent traumatic experience. First, I'd like to go over grievance, what I had gone over in the last part of this. So, we're going to be continuing with this part, is part 3 of domestic violence culture and the examples based upon what happened after the event. Now, I had stated that one of the worst parts was how people responded to it. Now, the first part, of course, most people think it's the act itself. No. So I'm going to go all the way back to when I was 15 years old, and I was drugged and raped. So most people would think it was the act when that was happening. Well, I'd have to say that was actually the scariest as to when that one happened. I didn't really know this person that well. They were an acquaintance from high school that I went to school with, and it was at their house. And it was scary because I had absolutely no control because they had drugged and raped me. Plus, a friend was there with me when it happened and actually was there seeing it happen and didn't respond in ways that most people think they would respond, which would be to, call the cops or, something like that. So now, the second time that happened to be when I was 16 years old with a man I was dating that was, I would say at that time would be illegal because he was 25. And he ended up taking advantage as to after I had said no to something and still proceeded to try anyways and hold me down forcefully. So now how did those two affect me differently from each other as to the recent traumatic experience? The first one, the way I responded was, as I've stated, I was mainly fearful of my 3 alcoholics as to how they would treat me after, and knowing how they always blamed me for everything and would abuse me based upon it. And actually, that's exactly what happened after that. So that actually was the worst one. And it became the worst one mainly because of how my 3 alcoholics responded to it. That's what traumatized me the most. The next one, I have to be honest, it was like, the only thing that hurt the most was, again, how my 3 alcoholics responded to it. Now, your 16-year-old comes to you and tells you that they were, sexually assaulted by somebody and they happen to be quite older. I mean, most parents, you would think their response would be, calling the cops, trying to get this man in jail. Because that's technically and legally, they molested a child because he was 25 and I was 16. So, with those two, the main thing I felt, based upon what I had already read about, was based upon my morals and how I feel about intimacy and sex. I view it much different, and like I said, many people don't understand that. I find it very special to me, and I always have, ever since I was a child. That's just how I am. And like Ken told me, there's nothing wrong with that. Meaning, if I don't want to do that with somebody, I'm not ready to, and I don't have the same feelings, why do it if it only makes me unhappy? Not worth it. Absolutely true. The most genius thing anybody has ever said to me based upon my feelings on that. And guess what? It came from a male. Oh my goodness. Yeah, see? Men do think with their, what? Brains, not their... So, now, back to my feelings. Now, the third, I would have to say the trauma, the hardest part was dealing with grievance, because I'll be honest, is that this was the first person that I had actually felt a connection to, as in intimate partnership, as to emotions. I never felt comfortable in my relationships with other men I had dated. And I never had that much trust for any males that I've dated in the past. I honestly never felt a connection like even holding hands or even, kissing. I never even enjoyed kissing, to be honest. So actually, this was the first person that I was dating for a few months, and I pop kissed, and I actually was like, wow, I always heard about the, floating and all that stuff, and that's exactly what happened. I was like, wow, but it took time. Like I stated, after the trauma of the recent bullying incident and what I had gone through after what Ken had done, it was how I reacted, as I stated, for the trauma. As for how it affected me, it was very hard for me to even be touched, a little bit, even a hug, a little, a side hug. It took a while, just, a side hug, let's just say I didn't even pop kiss this person until like around 3 months after dating them. And it was, even shocking to them because of that, because of my trauma. I couldn't barely do much. Also, I ended up holding their hand. I was like, so there was many things that I experienced with this person that I never experienced before. So the grievance part would be that is the time, the first person I actually trusted in that way ended up doing something I never could imagine. And it's still very hard for me to accept that happened. And that was the hardest part. As for, I'm going to relate that to, because I keep on bringing up my father, Ken, and Grumpster. That'd be like with Ken. He was the first friendship that I actually had the highest expectations, the first person I trusted. As I stated, I had opened up to him more than I ever had to anybody else. He's the first person I opened up to like that, and actually entrusted to never betray that. As I've stated, there's certain expectations I never had of him, which would be like apologizing for things that he had done to hurt me. And as for my father, I would say, in comparison, in the three of them, I would say that my father actually compares to Grumpster the closest and the most out of the three of them. Because when I was trying to get through the process of escaping, I also had to accept the fact that I'm not going to be able to be around my dad and see him every day like I was. That was the hardest thing that I was going through during that time, as for loss. As for my mother and sister, like I said, I have absolutely no good memories of them. As for my father, even though he had become extremely abusive, there was, the want and the need. So I was always going back to the want, which was many years ago. And that's where I wanted to point out where society and culture comes into play, even the mental health field and everywhere, is that they'll see, well, he's your father, he loves you. But you know what? They're doing the same thing that I'm doing. They're automatically thinking he's my father, so he's this, as to what people expect, what I want, or, deserve, actually. That's exactly what society does. They think of the parents as always loving you and da-da-da-da. Even to this, even till now, there's certain people that would say that, well, your father, you should let him know and da-da-da-da. My father doesn't even want to talk to me because I left, So, hey, that's just how it is. And I have to accept that he is this. So, how did people react with Grumpster? Now, of course, since it's an intimate partnership, so they would be like a little bit more empathetic than they would have been when Ken had traumatized me. Most people are like, what's the big deal? Just, when actually, like I stated, it traumatized me the most out of the three of them. Now I'm stating how Grumster is more like with my father. Since he met me, I was, like I stated, it was very hard for me to trust, and that was due to what happened with my trauma with Ken and him betraying it in ways that I would never expect him to do. And with Grumster, it was very hard. I tried my hardest because I actually saw a great person that I really wanted to keep in my life. So I tried extremely hard, and believe me, it was very tiring, but I tried extremely hard because I didn't want to lose that. And like I stated in one of the things I read, is that that person did not see that, how hard I was trying. Because, of course, most people, they don't understand how that trauma affected me and why I was the way I was, as to how it affected me, as to not like to be touched and how it affected me and whatnot. Most people don't understand that. But like I stated, is I shouldn't have to explain it, and people should also respect and understand that. And that's something else, I learned based upon that relationship, is that, even though that person may not understand, they should at least respect my wishes as to how I feel about it, and continue that respect as to how I felt about it. So, how did Grumster relate to my father? Now, Grumster, as I stated, was somebody that I would have hoped and actually saw as lasting, even if it didn't stay an intimate partnership, is that it would stay as a friendship forever. Because that's just how I felt. And it was just a connection like that really quickly. And based upon how I felt with him, and I felt safe. And that was the first time I felt that way with any male that I had dated. So, just like with my father, there's that person I knew, but then things happened that went, and that was based upon Asuka in the story. Asuka was very controlling. She tried to control me too, and I could actually see that she did it with Grumster too. And to the point that I infuriated her because I wouldn't take that abuse and trying to control me and whatnot. So, of course, they riled things up and whatnot. Basically like the, gossiping, bullying cult clans do. So, that's exactly the same process as I've pointed out, as in the bullying cult clans, with my 3 assaholics, and even in this situation. This person ended up stalking me and all types of stuff. And also, Grumster, did certain things that even Ken did, such as ghosting me, ignoring me, not apologizing for doing certain things, such as Asuka actually threatened me and put my life in danger. And that's where Grumster was the onlooker and didn't do nothing when that happened, which was very hurtful. And even then, that's something I should have looked at as, stepping back from that relationship when that started happening. Those were the red flags. And that's something I'm going to be discussing too, because red flags aren't exactly that. Red flags are possibilities. Yes, it's a possibility that that relationship, based upon that circumstance happening, could possibly turn out even worse and get worse. And it's really a yellow sign. Just like a road sign that's yellow, it doesn't mean it's actually going to happen. It's possible. So, back to the point. So, after that, that's when things started getting worse based upon how he spoke to me and all of that. And even me and a friend looked over texts between me and that person, me and Grumster, as to the beginning and when Asuka came into the picture. And even they noticed the change in how he spoke to me, which was very different. Even she noticed it, like, wow. So, and basis as to how they compare is that there was the good things that I had with Grumpster that I still value and I grieve over because of the feelings I had when I was with them, as for how I felt safe, how I felt for the first time a connection, as in for a stronger relationship than friendship, and just them as a person and enjoying their company. So I actually had, with this trauma, is grievance, just like I did with my father. I still remember walking around just looking at old pictures of me and my father before he became more abusive, and even when he became abusive, you know, the very few times where things were good, you know, when their abuse cycle, what they call the honeymoon stage, was going on. But I had to always kind of in my head put it, you know, there's this and that, and still reminding myself that, you know, he's not this anymore, he is this. And that is extremely hard. And that's exactly what's still happening, you know, with me and Grumpster. You know, just seeing the pictures or even seeing him, you know, I still will always remember that, even though I know that happened. So grievance can be a part of after a trauma such as this. Abuse is abuse no matter what it is. Now, I had mentioned forgiveness. Now, you know, people are going to be like, well, you know, that's crazy that you would forgive something like that, you know, but like I stated with my father, everybody was like, you know, yeah, forgive him, you know, he loves you, he's your father, get it, he's my father, so that means he loves me, and that means love. Absolutely not. Me and my friend were talking about that, and even she agreed. Just because he's your father doesn't mean he's worthy of being in your life and that it's actually love. Absolutely not. And the way I look at it is that Grumpster and my father, I feel the same way. You know, if there was change in the future and that their behaviors changed and as to who they are, you know, it's a possibility that me and my father could reconnect. Who knows? Maybe me and Grumpster. I have no idea. There's certain things to every person that's their personal boundaries as to what they will not tolerate and what they will. So what's one thing I won't tolerate is when somebody involves themselves and ruins a relationship that I had with somebody that was important to me. And that's due to the bad trauma that I had with Ken. And that's when people lied to him, saying things such as, what was it? Oh, that I shared his address publicly. I don't know who came up with the lie, if he did, I remember reading it, is that I thought he wanted to come here to Florida to have sex with me. That's all I can remember as to the lies right now. But it was those two main things that got things riled up, as to continue making more lies and also degrading me and abusing me that way. So now with, you know, Grumpster, you know, like I said, it's the hardship of like what I went with my father as to, you know, grievance, and seeing that one person sitting on that bench when I first met them with the rainbow over them, and the times that we did share before someone came in and he started turning into that. So many people think that, you know, my only goal in all of this is, you know, revenge or whatever. And that's absolutely not true. I mean, I honestly hope that my father has the best life possible and can have that, actually, if he makes changes for himself. For himself. I actually hope the same for Grumpster and Ken. I actually hope that good things happen for them and that they make positive changes in their lives to actually make them better for themselves. So, based upon one of my videos, it's pretty understandable why this actually affected me worse than the other two traumas from when I was 15 and 16, based upon the person who was involved in that trauma. Just like now you see that I'm comparing my father, Ken, and Grumpster as to traumas that affected me in ways differently than others. And like I stated, it's all based upon the expectations that you have on that person in any type of relationship. And my dad, of course, he's the first one that I looked up to and admired and had somewhat trust, even though I knew he would always go along with the cult leader, my mother. Then there was Ken, that I actually thought had personal integrity, was a trustworthy person that would always keep my secrets and anything I shared with him to himself, no matter what, you know. So I always felt that I could share with him anything. Also, the parts of him with his words of wisdom and being interesting and inspiring me based upon conversations and treating me in respectful ways before he is under, or, well, I'm sorry, I should say, well, not under the influence. As for Grumpster, you know, he's the first male in my life that I actually felt a connection to in that type of way, even though it didn't seem obvious, considering most people, you know, think, you know, with their gutter head, but it actually was, out of all the people that I have dated. So that's what made that one hard. It ended up being like my grievance and loss of my father. So we're going to get back to the domestic violence culture and the responses that I had received based upon it. He's fucking her. Why do you want to be with him when he is fucking her? First of all, did you see him fucking her? So even before I had gotten with Grumpster, you know, I already heard the, you know, gossip cult clan rumors, you know, from others, you know, oh, he's a player, he's a flirt. Oh, I heard that he cheated on so-and-so when he was dating her with some woman that somebody saw go into his apartment and, I don't know, and saw come out, or, you know, Asuka, you know. Well, anyways, even to this day, you know, everybody kept on telling me even before, oh, he's sleeping with her, I know it, you know. I was like, no. It's like, I could tell it's like just the way that it was. Even if it was, it's like, that's not even why I'd be upset now, but I just never seen that between the two of them. I mean, it's just something that I can see, is if somebody's, you know, interested in that way. And I never seen that between the two of them. It was more of a power and control thing of her over him, if anything. So everybody sees things differently. But even to this day, I don't even believe those rumors that were being said about, you know, him. Hopefully he will apologize. Well, an apology would be nice, but a person needs to change their behaviors and actions. My current situation is not any different than what I have with my dad. In both situations, that person has been abusive to me. Just because it is my father doesn't make it any different. They need to make changes if I ever consider to let them back into my life. The situation involving Ken is only different in this because I never once expected Ken to ever apologize to me for anything that he has done to me. Because as I have shown in previous videos, he has seen the proof of it, and he never apologized for anything that he did to harm me. I already knew that about Ken before the recent bullying incident. Meaning, one of the expectations I didn't have for Ken was that he would step up to what he had done wrong. So even when I was asked by others if Ken will ever apologize to me, I actually laughed or looked at them like they are nuts to actually even think that in the first place. Well, even ones that didn't know him, but I don't know, I just Even people that knew him, it's like, yeah, Ken, apologize? What? Oh my goodness. As for my father and Grumpster, I honestly don't think that my father will ever apologize. But I do think that Grumpster may have it in him to apologize for what he did to harm me. That's very true. As for ones that I would expect to step up to what they've done and actually sincerely apologize in a genuine manner, and be very genuine about it and sincere, would actually be, first to apologize, I would think would be Grumpster, then maybe my father, but Ken, that'd be never. If he calls, tell him that you just need time away from him to think about all that happened. That's very true. I mean, I needed time away from my father and understanding the situation better. As much as I miss him, even now, I do realize what I want and what I need. The same applies with the situation now. At that time, I knew what I need to do, but I didn't want to focus on the consequences or punishment of dealing with accepting that Grumpster is not the person that I had known. Like I said, that's not something I would have ever expected this person to ever do to anyone. Let's just say that Grumpster never even raised his voice to me before this. He's never laid a hand on me, hit me, or anything. I mean, if anything, he's the most soft, subtle, and quiet person you'd ever meet. I mean, let's just say people would think that I'm more likely to, hit or do stuff like that because I have a pretty big mouth. Hey, at least I can admit it. I know that my mouth can, say things and I could be what most people would say is a potty mouth. At least I can admit it. Oh, so he attempted to rape you. Even my friend Angela was like, who the heck would say that? Oh my goodness. Oh well, at least he stopped when you yelled at him. Are you freaking kidding me? Any penetration, no matter how far they were able to get it in, or how long it lasted, or if he cummed or not, is still rape. I mean, that is just really imbecilic to even say that. And like I stated, it's not even the physical part that hurts. It's the part of who did it, how it affected you emotionally and mentally. The first two rapes, it was more out of shame. As for myself, how I saw myself, I actually thought I was a slut. I thought I was a bad person. I blamed myself for it happening. In this case, I'm actually seeing it as it's the same like as my father. I'm feeling a huge loss as for what I had with that person and grievance for that loss of something that I thought would last forever, just like I felt with my father. I actually thought that my friendship with Ken would last for a long time and actually hoped that it did back then. But again, there's the want and need. So, yeah, he stopped, but it shouldn't have happened in the first place. It is well known that sexual encounters need to be consensual between both parties. I would have run out of there. I would have slapped him and walked out if he touched me without my permission. I would have shot him. You don't know what you will do, in fact, when something like that happens to you by someone. Even if it has happened to you before. Our bodies naturally respond with the fight, flight, or freeze reaction. Exactly what I described as for why I mainly prefer to discuss serious, emotional topics with men. This is because most females make it out to be a competition. Seriously. You are not better than another female just because you think you can or would do something in a way that you think is the only right way to do it. We all think there's a right way to do things. I mean, even that's something I would have thought of before any of these traumas happened to me. Yeah, like I said, I can beat up anybody I want, Our bodies do naturally respond to, things where we feel we're in danger in ways that we wish we had more control over, but it just happens that way. It's almost like the, cops when I was being stalked by the guy that spit on me and has actually stalked and sexually harassed other women that live here. They're like, well, record it next time when he spits on you. Even my friend Karen was like, really? It's like, yeah, it's like, I see the person coming and they walk up to me. I already know I'm going to say, can you please just wait till you spit on me? Because I already know that you're going to do it. So I could get my video out and record you actually doing it. Yeah, a cop said that. It's like, really? It's like I'm going to have to wear a camera on me all the time, for, protection. So I have proof for the, police, Oh my goodness. So much stupidity in so many fields, I can't believe that blank did that. I had a feeling that he was just hanging around because you were a challenge or goal for him to have sex with. So based on your personal perception of who you think a person is actually the all-telling as for what a person would do. A victim doesn't need to hear others' opinions based upon their views of that victim's relationship with their offender. If you aren't the one in that relationship, then you don't know shit about what happened during it. Even the victim doesn't know for certain whether that offender had bad intentions from the start or not. It's hard enough for the victim to question whether or not that person who they trusted and had those feelings for weren't the same for them throughout the entire time they had a relationship with each other. That's absolutely true. Like I had just stated, is that the hardest part with this trauma is the loss of what I thought I had. So when people are saying, what a jerk, and you should have seen that, he shouldn't have been doing that, da, 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 da. You know what? I'm already thinking that myself, and it's hard enough on myself wondering if any of that was real. And that's the same thing, I went through with my own father and Ken, is wondering if they ever did care, I mean, that's something that a victim's already having to think about, and they really don't want to. That's the consequences of the incident itself, is thinking, was this all planned? Did they have this all planned out and they really were just saying things that they didn't mean, like they care about you, or acting like they did, when all along it was a setup? That makes it even harder, because if that victim actually did have certain expectations or feelings for that person, as in caring for them, looking up to them, admiring them, feeling safe with them, any of that, and then thinking, all of that was not real, that whole time they were feeling all those good things that in the want weren't real and were actually that the whole time, it's bad enough to think that it, was good, to go into that. But imagine having to realize that it was that the entire time. Oh my goodness. That's, wow. See, I don't even want to think about it. That's extremely hard. So I'm going to end it right here. As you can see how the responses and how the victim responds to the traumatic event is actually different than what most people automatically assume. And this is based upon what I've also learned in the mental health field. And I'm actually understanding it better myself based on my personal experiences with it. So I hope to see you for the continuation of this part of domestic violence culture and the responses to my recent trauma, and be able to learn from it, not only for the mental health profession, but for society as a whole. Not just for me, but for current and future victims of domestic violence, which has changed from rape culture to domestic violence culture. So, I'm Shelley Rothus, and I'm a different kind of victim. See you next time.